Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Evan Schneider, and today in this video we're going to be talking about how to achieve the soft filmic look in DaVinci Resolve. The actual look that we're going to build is relatively easy to set up, and it has a few main characteristics that I'm going to show you, but the real challenge comes in actually finessing the footage and making it work across multiple shots, and to not have the look kind of go overboard and create some weird looking colors or some unnatural looking highlights. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to create these looks from scratch. However, if you're looking to save time and get some nice variations with this look, I do offer a LUT pack called the Terra LUT Pack, and it includes 8 different looks that are soft and moody and warm and rich. So you can check those out on my website, lutcompany.com, if you're interested, and there's a link down below. All right, so we're here in DaVinci Resolve, and I've got 3 clips loaded up. Here is the first clip, here's the second clip, and here's the third clip. And I've gone ahead and I've already done a primary correction on these clips just to get them normalized. So this one I brought the exposure down, this one I've done just a little bit of a boost, and then this one I have warmed it up and brought the exposure up a little bit. I might actually cool this off a little bit. Quickly, before we get started, I'm just going to show you my color management settings. And I've set this up as DaVinci YRGB color managed because this footage was shot in log. I just decided that it might be easiest for Resolve to automatically color manage this and convert the log to Rec 709. So I've manually tagged these clips, and Resolve is automatically converting them to my timeline color processing mode, which is SDR, and my output color space, which is SDR Rec 709. And so anything I do in the node tree will be processed in the color processing mode, and it'll be processed after my input color space transform from log to Rec 709. Like I said, we're going to be creating a look, and my goal is for the look to apply across all 3 clips. And so this is kind of my general workflow in creating a look for a project. No matter how many clips I have, I'm trying to create a look that can span across the entire timeline. And so I'm not actually going in individual clips and like color grading one clip, making sure everything matches, and then going to the next clip, making sure everything matches. I'm kind of jumping around pretty quickly in the timeline, making sure that the look I'm creating actually works for all of the clips. And that way I can have the look live down the pipeline, and then my primary node acts as just a balancing. So I can always go back to my primary node and work on that later if I need to further balance it before it gets fed into the look creation. The first aspect of the look is very soft highlight roll off, and the highlights are usually brought down quite a bit. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And so after my primary node, I'm going to create a new node, and I'm just going to call it tone. And in this node is where we're going to create our basic tone curve. And this is our creative tone curve. So it's kind of different from our conversion curve. It's actually, we're using it to map the tones and make them have a specific feel and look. So in this tone curve, I'm going to go to my curves tool, which is right here, and I'm going to make sure everything is linked YRGB. And then on these 3 dots, I'm going to click on the title that says editable splines. What this allows me to do is click on the top and bottom, and you can see that now I can control the curve using the splines instead of creating a bunch of different points along the graph. And this allows me to get a really smooth tone curve with only having to adjust 2 different points on that curve. So let me reset that real quick. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring down, this is the highlight level. And so I'm going to bring that down quite a bit, maybe around there. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a very soft highlight roll off by pulling this spline out quite a bit. And then since it's lifting my shadows a little bit, I'm going to pull this spline down. And as you can see, as I adjust that, you can see what it's doing to the image. So as I'm doing this, I'm looking at the shadow areas here, and then I'm also looking on my parade scopes, making sure that I'm not clipping anything. And the beauty of working with the editable splines is that if you pull it out closer to here, I'm actually just compressing the shadows. I'm not actually clipping them until I move this black point, then you can see that I'm actually clipping them. But if I'm just moving this point right here, then I don't have to worry about clipping. I'm just compressing the shadows into the bottom. Same with the highlights. So I brought the white point down and I'm basically compressing the highlights up in a way that creates a really soft tone. And even in overexposed areas of the image, I'm decreasing the distance between the highlight tones and the overexposed tones. And what this does is it creates a very pleasing effect on skin tones and highlights. So if I turn this off, you can see like there's a big difference between the white of the shirt and then these highlights and the skin. But if I turn it on, you can see that it kind of softens those tones and it creates a very gentle roll off in the highlights and the skin tones, and it looks very pleasing to the eye. So this is kind of the main like characteristic of the look, and I would recommend spending a good amount of time finessing this curve and creating something that you feel looks good, because you want to make sure that you're not correcting for any exposure changes using the tone curve. You want to make sure that you're doing exposure changes in the primary, because remember, our goal is to apply this tone curve and the rest of our look creation to the rest of the node tree. So we can even take a stab at that and see what that looks like right now. So I'm going to copy the tone curve. I'm just going to highlight it and press Command C. And then we're going to go to the next clip and I'm going to create a new node, and then I'm just going to paste it onto that node. And let's get rid of our clips real quick. And so now we have the tone in this next node, and I feel like it's doing a little bit to the shadows. So I might actually bring up the lift on the primary and do that a little bit, and then go back to my tone curve and maybe bring the shadows out a little bit. So I'm adjusting the tone curve based on this clip now. So that looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to copy the tone curve out to my last clip and find a good frame, create a new node, paste that node, and that's looking pretty nice. And you can see here on the parade scopes what this tone curve is really doing. So this area represents the sky, the highlights on the sky. And so when I turn it on, you can see that I still have all of the data there, but I'm decreasing the distance between the highlight tones. And so the bright highlights in the sky are being brought down, and then these tones are being brought up. So it kind of creates that really soft, faded look in your clip. So let's copy this over to the rest of our nodes. And the next part of our look is kind of going to be the color adjustments. And so I'm going to create a new node after the tone node, and I'm just going to call it curves. And in this node, we're going to adjust the colors to create kind of an overall look. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my hue versus hue. And one big characteristic of this look is that the green tones are very warm. So we want to use the hue versus hue curve to push the green tones towards the yellow hue. So to do that, I'm just going to create a preset green and a preset yellow. And I'm just going to drag this point and I'm going to move it up. And if you want to see what colors you're actually affecting with the curve, you can kind of just go to the extreme and see what it's doing and then dial it back. It's not really, grabbing all of the tones that I want. So I might need to use this yellow, and you can see right here that now it's affecting those, and then maybe even this one too, to get these tones. But this is an extreme example, so let's bring it back. And then we also want to make sure that this area, this is kind of where the skin tones live. I'm going to create a point here that basically ties those skin tones in to that point and makes sure that those aren't affected at all, because we don't want the skin tones to start looking unnatural. We're just looking to affect kind of the green and yellow tones and make them warmer. So I'm just going to push that up a little bit and try to finesse this. And then I might push the blue tones up a little bit towards teal. And with that adjustment, you can see this is before and this is after. So we're warming up the green tones. The next thing I want to do is go to my hue versus loom, and I'm going to create a point on the skin tone area so that we're not affecting it. and just appoint a broad sweep over here on the blue channel. And I just want to affect the luminance of the green tones and bring the luminance down to make them a little bit darker and richer and kind of increase the density of the green tones. So I'm going to bring those down, and this just creates that kind of moody, really rich color look. So this is before and this is after. So I'm bringing the luminance of the green tones down. This tool, the hue versus lume, you want to be a little bit careful with because it has the most ability to kind of ruin the image and introduce extra noise and artifacting in the image. So when you're adjusting the hue versus lume, you want to make sure to play it back, make sure that you're not getting any weird stuff happening in the image. And right now, this is looking still pretty clean, so I might even bring it down a tiny bit more. The next thing we want to do is go to the hue versus sat curve, and I'm going to create another point on the skin tone and on the blue. And then you can either play with this, you can increase the saturation of those tones, or you can decrease this look if you want it to be kind of minimal and moody and very soft and filmic. You can decrease the saturation of those green tones to bring down the overall kind of color of it. And it also kind of makes the skin tones pop. We could even bring those up a little bit. And so that's before and that's after. The last thing I want to do with this curves look is I just want to introduce a little bit of extra warmth into the image. So I'm going to do that using my custom curves tool. And I'm going to go to my blue channel. I'm going to turn off the editable splines, and I'm just going to go to the middle area, and I'm just going to bring this point down. And as you can see, as I'm taking out the blue tones, I'm warming up the image. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit, and then I feel like it's a little bit too green, so I'm going to go to my green channel. I'm going to bring that down a little bit until I feel like the skin tones are feeling nice. We can go to the vector scope and look at this point, and we can make sure that they're around the skin tone line. Right now they're pushing a little bit towards green, but that's kind of okay with me because the overall feel of the image feels natural and it feels warm and it still feels realistic to me. So as long as they're around that area, we're good to go. Now that we've warmed up the image, this is before and this is after. So those are just our curves adjustments. And then if I go to my tone and my curves, this is before and this is after. You can see that in these two nodes, we made a pretty big difference and we're getting a lot closer to the warm and faded and filmic look that we're going for. I might pull this back a little bit so that it's not too warm. So that's before and that's after. So from here, we could go back to our hue versus sat, and I might bring down the saturation of the green tones a little bit and then bring back the skin tones a little bit too. And as I'm doing this, I'm kind of toggling things on and off, making sure that it all looks natural. I'm kind of curious what this looks like on the rest of my clips. So I'm going to bring back up my clips, and we are wanting to copy these two nodes to the rest of the clips. So the easiest way to do this is to right click on this first one that we want to copy from, and we're going to click on display node graph. So we can simply go to the next clip. We can literally just drag tone on top of here, and then we can drag the curves node on here until you see that little plus sign. And now we have the curves in the node tree. So now if we turn that off, we can see this is before and this is after. And then we're going to go to the last clip and we're going to drag on the tone, and then we're going to drag on the curves. And now we have a little bit more warmth. This is before and this is after. So from here, we're kind of just finessing this and making sure it all looks good. If you want to go back to your primary node and make some more adjustments, like say we want to decrease the contrast in this clip a little bit, we can just adjust the contrast and pivot. You can really make any adjustments you need to in this node. We can also cool it down. We can warm it up a little bit more with the offset. And then finally, I think to kind of further sell this look, I kind of want to make a kind of a strong vignette on the end of it. So these are kind of more creative adjustments after the look DNA that we've created. And I'm going to create a new node. I'm just going to make a power window, circular power window, and I'm going to increase it to the size of our frame. Let's just soften it a little bit. So I'm just going to create a nice vignette. Then I'm going to invert the window. And then I'm going to go back to, I'll turn the window off. I'm going to go to my gain control. I'm just going to bring down the gain so that the highlights on the sides come down a little bit more. So this is before and this is after. So this is using our vignette, and let's just label it real quick. And now we have a vignette. We'll go to the next clip. We'll create a new node and then we'll Command V. Now we have that. And as I look at this clip, I feel like it needs a little more saturation actually. So I'm going to my primary and I'm just going to increase the saturation so that we get a little bit more detail and pop in the skin tones. And it kind of matches the colors of this clip a little more. And you could even, I feel like this clip needs to be a little bit more green, maybe a little bit warmer. So we can adjust the temperature and tint. So as I'm going through the clips, I'm constantly adjusting them because my eyes are adjusting to the clips. So I want to make sure that I'm, always adjusting things and, it's never set in stone. So let's go to the last one and I'm going to paste my vignette and let's see what that looks like. So on this clip, this is before our look and then this is after. So it's adding a lot of pop. It's really pleasing on the skin tone and overall it's making those highlights nice and soft. And then last thing you want to do, if you're down for it, let's add some grain. So I'm going to use film convert nitrate for the grain and let's zoom in quite a bit. And I'm going to turn off the film stock. So turn off the chroma and luma. So I'm just using the grain and let's increase the grain size a little bit. And if you're uploading to YouTube or the internet, you want to go a little bit over with the grain because the compression will kind of get rid of some of it. So something like that. I'll increase the grain size a little more. We can also use the presets. So film size like Super 16 or Super 35 Academy. I like the Super 35 and then just increase the size a little bit, maybe decrease the strength. And so yeah, that's the grain. If we want to copy that to the other clips, we can do this. Or what I could have done too is just applied the grain in the timeline level. So we can create a new timeline level node, paste the grain in there, and now it's applied across the whole timeline. So I just need to go back and delete the grain. Oops. Delete the grain from these clips. Now we have grain applied across the whole timeline. I probably could have also pasted the vignette onto the timeline level, but this just allows us to adjust the vignette clip by clip if we need to. So basically what we've done is we've added, let's turn these off. We've done a primary adjustment and we've applied a tone curve to compress the highlights, bring them down, and then create a nice soft and moody soft roll-off. Then we've introduced curve settings to warm up the image, warm up the green tones, bring down the luminance of those tones, and apply an overall color look to the footage. And then finally, we've created a vignette to bring down the sides and direct the attention towards the center of the frame. And then we've applied grain over the top of everything to further sell that filmic look. Now, like I said, if you're looking to have just a quick way to achieve these looks, I have a LUT pack in my store called the Terra LUT Pack that includes 8 looks based on this specific style. So I'm kind of curious what those look like. So I'm going to create a new version by hitting Command Y. And in this new version, I'm just going to delete the tone and the curves because we're going to replace that with the LUT. So I'm going to create a new label called LUT. And I'm going to go over to my LUTs. And here we have the LC Terra 1 through 8. And so I can simply double click on these to preview them. So this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so what I would do here is I would find one that I like. I feel like 6 looks really cool on this footage. And then I would adjust my primary adjustments to make it look good before the LUT. So I might bring up the brightness a little bit and maybe decrease saturation. So this is kind of a different look, but with the LUT and the vignette, this is before and this is after. And so if I wanted to apply these to the next clip, I can simply go to my clips. I'll reveal the node graph, and then I'll go to the next clip. I'll create a new version, and I will delete these two, and then I'll simply drag the LUT node on top. And then I can make primary adjustments to make it look good before the LUT. Now we're good to go there. So if I wanted to try out some other LUTs on here, here's Terra 1. I'm going to decrease the saturation based on the look we created. Here's Terra 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you can see that it kind of has different variations of the overall look with high saturation, low saturation, different kind of variations of the tone curve, and it's doing different things to the footage. But overall, we're achieving the same look. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate the support. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment down below. I try to respond to as many questions as possible. Like I said, I offer LUTs and color grading tools on my website, lutcompany.com. So make sure to check that out if you're interested. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.